we're ready. Hello, everybody, and welcome to How to Build a Business Case for a Grant. Let me start, first of all, with a quote from Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill was famous in the 1920s for a book called Think and Grow Rich. And basically what he said was, first comes thought, then organization of that thought into ideas and plans, then transformation of those plans into reality. The beginning, as you will observe, is in your imagination. And this is where I like to have the starting point. I work with community groups and with businesses, but community groups in particular, who have got these great ideas. Sometimes they're just a seed of an idea. And I work with them to develop that idea and to get it onto paper, figuratively speaking, and ready for a grant opportunity that may come their way. So this to me is like encapsulates that whole concept of having the idea and putting it onto paper. Using the word paper, but it could be, onto your computer screen. Now, with that, thinking about it is you've got some great ideas out there, and sometimes you just don't do anything with them because you just don't know how to get them down on paper. So this presentation is actually how to get your ideas out of your head onto paper, but in such a way that when a grant opportunity comes along, you've actually done the groundwork. So here we get started. Just a quick summary about me. As you can tell from my accent, I'm actually from the north of England. There's the Yorkshire Rose. We're the only county in the whole of the UK that's actually got its own national day, which is on the 1st of August each year. The town hall there, that's Bradford, where I come from. The sort of ruins of a textile company is very much in my values of the past, which contribute to what I do today, because in that setting, we had a strong community of people. I went on to work in promoting the European Union, or how to get money out of the European Union, and then came to Australia, and I ended up working in a government department in Victoria. Some of you online are from neighbourhood houses, and I used to work for adult community and further education. So I was probably on the dark side for some of you, but I jumped out of that in 2010, decided to come over to the light side, so to speak, and I've been working with not-for-profits and businesses ever since in community development work, strategic planning, grants, and now in the tender space. And along the way, of course, I've written my book, Into the Intuitive Marketer, which parallels my life's journey with marketing, with technology, and actually doing the practice before going back to study the marketing rationale, why I did and why it was successful. Okay, so let's get starting. So we're putting together a business case. So how to get your thoughts and ideas onto paper. And I said, I do apologize if you're technology minded. You just read onto the computer screen, however you want to put it. All right, so the first thing that you would do is you've got an idea, right? Now, you have to be mindful of, is this idea new? Is it new to you? Is it new to your setting? Is it just a new concept, full stop? Because when it comes to funding, most of the time, funders will not fund something that's not new, that's not different. It's got to be a disruptor. It's got to lead to change. So in this process, step one is, what is the idea? Okay, you've got an idea. What is it? What is the need? What is the problem? What is the evidence? Now, at this point, just try to get as specific as you can with the evidence, not some overarching, oh, there's not enough people doing this, or there's too many young people who are suffering from homelessness. Actually take the opportunity to go out and to find the data. Do it now so you're ready. You don't have to start looking for it when the opportunity comes along. And of course, what is the opportunity? What is that change that you're trying to make happen? And what is the difference that it's going to make? Whilst you're doing that, have a look in your environment to say who else is doing something similar. Because if somebody's doing something similar and they may be actually looking for the same kind of funding you are, it's not new. You may have to work with them in the future. So it might be an opportunity to approach them and say, can we partner? Having worked in a funding body, whenever we've seen multiple applications coming in for the same thing or similar in the same area, we've actually done one of two things. We've either approached them and said, hey guys, can you two work together or three work together? And in fact, some funders actually encourage partnerships, or we funded neither of them. So it's always good to look to see who's doing something similar and see where the gap is, because that's the gap that will make you stand out when you start looking for the money. So is it innovative? Now, when I get approached by businesses, and I got approached yesterday from somebody who actually was running a Chinese herbal doctor's practice sort of thing. And I could say straight away, no, it's not something that can be funded because it doesn't lead to change. One of the change factors you need to be thinking about is one of four. Does it lead to social change? Does it lead to economic change, economic growth? And that usually means jobs, more visitors to your area, growth of industry, etc. Is it a cultural thing? Now, culture could be art, development of art, or it could be multicultural. Or is it going to be environmental change? If you can fit your idea into any one of those four categories, and you can demonstrate change and growth in the wider area, then there's likely to be a funding opportunity coming up at some point that's going to meet your needs. So step one, put your idea down, consider whether it's a new idea to you or to your environment, find the evidence to prove it, and then look to see if anybody else is doing the same thing. If not, you've got something there. The second step you do then is, okay, so we've got this idea. We know that there's a need for it. Now what we need to look at is, what does this idea look like? This is your project. What outcome are we looking for? What are we trying to achieve here? Okay. How are we going to do this? What is the design? So this is your project plan. Okay. What do we need to do to make it happen? So you know you need to achieve something. You know you need to, these things need to happen, but then you need to break it down. How is the process broken down? What I do, especially if I'm brainstorming mode, which is the reason why I've got that sort of image there with the post-it notes, and it's good if there's two or more of you actually in this process, is I'll sit down and I will have, you know, like a whiteboard or a clean table, desk, and I will actually have, think of all the little steps that need to be done, and then put the post-it notes on the desk, and then I'll all order them. And some might be in columns because they might be all the same process, but they might be different times. So I may, at the top of the column, I'm going to put probably, you know, January, February, March, April. And then underneath that, I'll probably say, you know, engage a contractor or engage a project manager. And then we might be saying, we need some planning permits. I'm just thinking of an infrastructure project here. So you probably then starting to build, you know, what it looks like. Now, if you do this as a process of one step at a time, you actually then begin to build a really good picture of what is actually going to be involved in your idea. You're going to build a project plan. And as you're building that project plan, you'll be able to look at it and go, this person or these people will be responsible for doing this. These will be responsible for doing this. These will be responsible for doing this. And it's probably going to take so long to do this. And it's going to take so long to do this. So you're getting really involved into that process. And then you can arrange it. So you look at it even a step further and you go, well, in order to do this, this has to be done first. Now I'm getting into the detail here because I think some of you will already identify what I'm actually doing here is putting a detailed project plan into place, which when you're finished with your post-it notes, you can translate that into what's called a Gantt chart. And a Gantt chart is a project management tool. So I've just recently been through some Securing Faith infrastructure grants for clients. And each one is required to have a project plan. And they've approached me and said, you know, what do we do about a project plan? So I've just said to them, well, you get your builders, contractors to come up with what they're going to do and when they're going to do that. And then what I did was translate that into a Gantt chart. So the good thing about it though is as you do that process, and if you do that properly, you will actually get a good idea of what the budget is really going to cost as well. Because you can then detail the costs of each step of the process. So, you know, this is detailing exactly what you're going to do. You might have a high level idea, but if you go into the detail, that's the second step. So what's involved in the design? What do we need to make it happen? What resources are you going to need? What skills are you going to need? Or who are you going to need? All those things. Who's involved? Do you need partners? How much time will each stage of the design process take? So that's your step 2 is sitting down and really thinking out what it's going to look like. And I say my recommendation, you can do this online with online boards now anyway, is use the post-it note concept because that's what the online boards are using, post-it notes, and arrange everything till you've got it right in your head. The step 3 is looking at the people, who's involved. So you're thinking about, especially if you're thinking about applying for a grant at some point for your project, and this can be used for anything actually. I know we've referred this to grants, but this can be used if you want to go to the bank, because I'm going to show you something later that we use, and people have used it to use this whole concept to build an idea to take to the bank or to submit to a corporate for funding, because this is the principal ideas that they're looking for. So who's in charge and accountable? I mean, nobody's going to give money to just anybody. Do you want to make sure that in an organization, the people at the top, because that's where the contract is, are actually over this, that they've got the right skills. So, you know, you probably need to be aware of who's going to be in charge of this, because they're the ones that are going to be accountable for how the money is spent. Look at their capability, because there is always a question in the grants for grants that ask about, you know, these people who's going to be involved. And I will always talk about board members, and I'll talk about the expertise that's on the board, which is a cross between technical and community, or technical and business, whichever you are. And finance, of course, there needs to be some financial expertise because they don't want to give money to somebody who can't manage their finances. What's your project management capability? And I can't, you know, understress that, because they want to make sure that you're going to have somebody in your team who is good at managing projects. So mention that, mention their expertise, you know, the last 2 or 3 years, or your organization for the last 2 or 3 years. What is your project management capability? If you don't have it, you can import it. I've worked with community groups that are volunteer-based, volunteer-led, and they've nominated somebody from the outside world to come in and be the project manager. What other skills and expertise do we need to make this plan happen? Do we have that now? Can we have it now, or do we need to bring that expertise in? Do we need the external expertise? I'm assure you that when we've got communities working with infrastructure, for example, they're going to bring in architects. They're going to bring in external construction managers to help manage the project. I'm using that because it's recently in my head. What experience do we have? And if you can demonstrate that you have the experience, especially in that particular field, use it and abuse it, is what I say, and look at where the gaps are. I'll give an example. A few years ago, I was putting an application together with 2 neighbourhood houses in Victoria for a programme. We didn't think the project was gonna, strong enough, but we threw everything at it. And that was a major part of that was the experience of the 2 neighbourhood houses working with this client base. They got funded more than they applied for in a very competitive round. But more than anything, they actually got a letter congratulating them on the response to 2 questions. And one of those questions was about their expertise and their experience. So if you can throw everything at and show them, it's all about proving that you're a low risk. Prove to yourselves you're a low risk. Prove to the funder that you're a low risk. Step 4 is, how much is this going to cost? How much is it going to cost to get the results we're looking for, to produce? What funds do we have? Or what labour or in-kind contributions do we have? And what additional funds are needed? Where are those funds coming from? The question is, do we need a grant? Is the grant the right source of income for us, or can we get that from elsewhere? I mean, we've been exploring looking at corporates now, and we've been looking at this category called B Corps, who sort of are into that social impact giving, and those businesses with corporate social responsibility. So we're looking at different ways of generating the income from our clients, not necessarily just from a grant space. And then the conditions for accessing external funds and investment. The conditions might not be right for you. What conditions do you need? If like you could be going for a loan, for example, you might not be able to pay back the interest. So obviously that's not going to be applicable to you. So a grant is probably even more important to you. So look at how much is this going to cost, and build in contingency, because by the time the funding opportunity comes along, prices may have changed. Get some quotes, but always build about 15, 20% just to be on the safe side. Okay, so then you think about, well, what are the risks here? What could go wrong? How will we know they've gone wrong? What impact will this have? And how can we plan for those risks? Now, it's amazing how many of my clients actually are frightened of the risks section. They just don't know what to write. And they tend to leave it to me to come up with the standard ones, like your project manager leaves, the ones about money, that's budget, time, and there's another one as well, but time, these things, it goes, it blows out a specification. It's not as you wanted it. There's some standard sort of risks that you can consider before you even think of applying, so that you know that you're going to get the right people in place, that you're going to be able to manage the kind of project that you're wanting to do. But have a look at that. Now, what I do when we do project management training, we use the risk section, because you can actually think a risk could be that nobody's interested in what we're doing. You can actually go back to your project planning phase 2, and actually build in there some community consultation, so that they are, and some engagement, so that they are interested in what you're doing. So you can use that risk side of things to go back and tweak what you're going to do side of things. So consider the risks, what could go wrong, because the last thing anybody wants is egg on their face. And then looking at the success factors. How do we know we've achieved the expected outcomes? What will have changed? How will we prove that we've done this? Okay, so you need to be looking at, this is what we want to happen, but how, in order to celebrate, what do we need to know? And then what you do then is you think about, well, how are we going to build this in right from the beginning? So we need to benchmark change. We need to know what people or the situation is like before we start. So you need to think about all those things that you were going to do before you actually find the grant you're looking for. And the final piece in that section is how could we use the findings? Because I used to do evaluation training in Victoria for 3 years for community groups. And the question, they had to do it for funding purposes. But when we turned it on the head and said that if you do this and you've got some messages, think about how you can use that. You can use that for your next grant. You can use that for lobbying. It's amazing how many official bodies out there don't have the data that you could quite easily acquire in your project. So you can use the findings, not just to sit on somebody else's fence or in their desktop or the fence, their shelf. You could use the findings to take what you want to do and get your message through to the next stage. Okay, so congratulations, you've just drafted a business case for a grant application. Because if you now go on to a standard grant application form, you'll see there it's in sections. The first section is the administrivia section. I call the administrivia, things about your details, if you're auspicing, all those kind of details, your incorporation, all your details about being a business or whatever, all that information up front. Then the next stage then is the criteria. And you will find what they're asking for is an overview, a title, a brief overview, a detailed overview, and then they start going into those questions. It doesn't matter how they ask the questions, but they're all asking the same thing. They're wanting to know evidence of need. They're wanting to know what you do and how you're going to do it. They want to know who's involved. They want to know how much it's going to cost. They want to know what's the risks involved. And they want to know how do you know you're being successful. It's as simple as that. Yes, there's complexities to it, and you've really got to be, to me, I call it marketing on steroids. But at the end of the day, they're all asking in roundabout ways for the same information. You can use that information because you can then, and we'll take this back to my days working for the European Union. We used to talk about getting all this information, putting it up, and then putting it in your desk drawer. Now, the key to all of this is that when you bring it out of your desk drawer to then when you find the ideal grant opportunity, you don't just key in what you've just already done. The key to all of this is to match your outcomes to the outcomes that the funder is looking for. Your proposition is about how all of this can contribute to their results. There's the magic. And I say this because I've been asked by people to check over the applications that they weren't successful with to give my advice. I never got past question 1, which was about, what do you want to do? What's the need for this? Question 1 and 2, and it was always about what we want to do. There was no relationship to what the funder was wanting. So they work from an overarching policy or an overarching outcomes. What you need to do is get your ideas and match your ideas and argue them to match what the funder wants. That's completing the loop. Okay, so if you go to your phones, you can, and it's available on the Apple and the Android. There is a free app And it's what was it called? Grant writing plan with the grant. Get that grant project planning app. And that's exactly what I've just gone through. It's a series of templates which actually goes through all those steps, those 5 steps. And the idea being, preferably on a tablet. It's also available on our websites as a form. We don't get involved. It's for you. You can print, share, email, do whatever you want with this information. But it's our way of saying to you, get the ideas out of your head onto paper, because one day something's going to come along and you're going to wish you'd got that information. And if you can share that whole process with project partners, can you imagine the amazement and the difference that you can make? So this is, as I said, you can download these, or not download, you can go into these for free. And if there is a problem, let us know, because there was when we were doing a workshop in April, but it's being cleared now. But certainly that's a great app that we've put out there for you, free of charge, so you can get your ideas ready for when the opportunity comes along. What we've also got for you is another offer here, because we've actually got a manual. We've got it written, and we've also got the audio book for it. Teach Yourself Grant Writing. So if you're then not ready to actually, sort of go through that whole, how the whole grant writing context works in Australia, we've got a book, a manual. It's usually 97, but we've actually put it on offer for people here today for the next 2 days, using that bit. And Karen, can you put that into the chat space? And what you could do is save the chat space and check it out later. But if you want to bit.ly, we can have the whole thing for $47. So we're putting that offer out there for people. I know I've written the book and therefore I'm biased, but I do actually think it is a manual to beat all manuals in this space. And also, you're welcome to travel to the Grant Writing Help Desk, which is getthatgrant.com. And again, there are some free resources for people, including access to the free grant writing, that planning app. But we go through 5 sections. So explain more what grants are, where you can start looking. So we've got a free manual there with the links to all the state sites where you can start looking for free. Do it yourself grant writing, we've got options there. If you want to engage us, then that's option 4. And we've also got some online programs, and we also do face-to-face training and mentoring. So we offer the full services for people. So I wanted to just flag that with you there. And if you really want to sort of, after all of this, you want to speak to me, you can. You're very welcome. You just go to again, can you put this one in, Karen? bit.ly/grants booking, and have a conversation with me, and let's see where we can go from there. So next time, as this is a monthly series, we're going to talk about how you leverage grants to build your business or cause. And before we take off the recording, I just want to finish off with this quote from Bob Proctor. If you see it in your mind, you will hold it in your hand. And that's what we want to do. We want to get your mind onto paper and to make that dream or that vision come true.